to say why this isn't my favorite Mega Man anymore? After an opening like that? Before you dislike the video and leave a mean comment, hear me out for a bit. I still really do like Mega Man 3, but after some reflection, I can say that this game has lost a little of the magic that once made me call it my favorite of the classic series. You may be able to anticipate what I'm going to say is this game's fatal flaw. I'll just start by saying that I absolutely love so many parts of Mega Man 3. Before we go into my full rant about the part I don't like, I want to shine light on the positive elements of the game. Let's go back to the year 2009, which shockingly was already 15 years ago. The Wii, Xbox 360, and PS3 are duking it out in one of the hottest console wars of all time since perhaps the SNES and Sega Genesis. As a kid, I was introduced to gaming through the N64, and then the GameCube cemented my love for Nintendo. You better believe then that on Christmas 2006, we had Wii Bowling going in full swing with the entire family. However, by 2009/10-ish, myself and many other Wii owners started to experience a little bit of disappointment in the console. The magic of nights like Christmas 2006 had worn off, and the Wii's library had just seemed to lose a lot of its luster. The logical step for me to take then was to branch out into something like a PS3 or an Xbox 360. With Christmas coming up again, it was the perfect opportunity to ask for a new console for the first time in a couple years. There were some big titles on the horizon for both the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and pretty much all my friends had an Xbox 360 in addition to their Wiis at this point. However, that's not the route I chose, no. Instead, I was becoming so invested in retro gaming at this point. I had discovered some of my favorite YouTubers like the Angry Video Game Nerd, and I was starting to build up my own NES collection. I was still missing some essentials, so I took the opportunity to fill some important gaps in my NES library with this Christmas wish list. Instead of joining up with my friends on Xbox Live this year, I was going to keep my reputation as the kid with the old games whose house you had to visit in person to play Nintendo with. There were 5 games that I asked for: Mike Tyson's Punch-Out!, Metroid, Castlevania 3, Contra, and most importantly, Mega Man 3. I remember the night of Christmas Eve, I stayed up late and was playing Mega Man 2, thinking about how excited I was to finally get my hands on the next entry in the series. That morning, one of my biggest surprises was that my dad actually found me a complete unboxed copy of Castlevania 3. I was ecstatic to see that box, and it was really cool. However, the grand prize was still Mega Man 3 in my eyes. That evening, my grandmom brought over copies of Metroid and Contra. I had 5 excellent titles that were far from new, but were new to me. As I mentioned, I used to say Mega Man 3 was my favorite one. That Christmas morning really set me up to be so excited for the game, and it's one of my cherished childhood memories. Outside of just pure nostalgia, the beginning of Mega Man 3 is absolutely incredible. All 8 stages are fun in their own way. The design is on point when it comes to adapting Mega Man's new abilities, namely the slide and our new sidekick, Rush. One thing I'll say is that I'm not the biggest fan of Gemini Man's stage, and I think Rush Marine is a little weird. However, Rush Coil works great in this game, and of course Rush Jet is completely overpowered. For the first attempt at having Rush, they did a great job. The slide feels amazing as well, and overall, the movement of Mega Man 3 is incredibly fun. I always start with Top Man. When I first played, I saw some people start with Magnet Man, but I find Top Man really easy to beat with the power cannon. Top Man's theme is probably my favorite in the game as well, and hearing that crazy part that goes up high gets me pumped to take on the game. Sadly, Top Man gives us probably the dumbest weapon in the entire saga, the Top Spin. Mega Man turns into a figure skater for a second, and the energy consumed by this weapon seems to be completely random. I just go in weakness order for the most part, so next I fight Shadow Man. And wait a second. Oh god, no! You can see here that my strategy with the Top Spin is to just mash it and jump around like an idiot until I win. It works every time. Shadow Man gives us the best weapon in the game though, the Shadow Blade. These are the successor to the Metal Blades from Mega Man 2 and are sadly not as broken. You can still shoot in a lot of directions and they are very powerful. However, the range has been reduced and they feel a little slower. I get it, the Metal Blades were too strong, but I'll always assert that they make Mega Man 2 as fun as it is. Sometimes weapon balance is not that important. Occasionally in these stages, we have encounters with this guy who's known as a Brakeman. He's a bit annoying when he hops around, but overall the fights are pretty easy. Yeah, spoilers for a game from 1990, but this guy is actually named Proto Man, and he is Mega Man's brother. This is the first time Proto Man is introduced in the series as well. Mega Man 3 sets so many precedents for the games to follow it. Rush, The Slide, and Proto Man all show up here for the first time. Pretty much every theme is a banger in Mega Man 3, but I have to give the nod to Top Man and Hard Man. Wait, that's really his name? Yeah, that was an odd choice, but anyway, his music is incredible. Generally, the themes fit the atmosphere of the stages, and they keep the pace of the game fast. However, where this game really shines in the music department is in the Wily stages. Similar to my Mega Man 5 review, I talked about how Wily Stage 1 from Mega Man 2 gets all the attention. Well, how about the first two Wily themes from this game? The way that first theme ramps up in its intro and sounds so triumphant is a phenomenal introduction into the late stages of the game. The second theme is a little more calm, but has a let's keep up the pace kind of feeling to it. And of course, the final stages do the proper progression of having an ambient, almost scary theme for them. One of the most important parts of the endgame for Mega Man 3, though, is the boss theme in the Wily stages. See, Mega Man 2 just had the same boss theme for the entire game. Even as you fight Dr. Wily, it's the same theme you heard when you fought Bubble Man. Mega Man 3 introduced a new theme for the Wily stage bosses. Wow. Just wow. The way that intro just slaps you in the face and then the theme starts going crazy is a much welcome change to the formula. These bosses are unfamiliar and can be challenging. After all, we don't get to see the Wily bosses in a stage select screen, so you're truly going in to the unknown as you enter those rooms. The theme is especially good when fighting Gamma, the final boss, and the addition of the new boss themes is another phenomenal precedent that Mega Man 3 set. As I was replaying the game for the sake of recording footage, I even started to feel like I might change my entire argument of the video. That's how much I enjoy the 8 Robot Master stages in Mega Man 3 and the Wily Castle stages. However, the reason why I told you that story about Christmas 2009 is to set the stage for me being nostalgia blinded for this game. I stuck to my original argument the moment those Doc Robot stages appeared. In case you don't know, once you defeat the Robot Masters in Mega Man 3, you don't just hop into the Wily stages like the first two games. Instead, you replay the 4 corner stages. They make some changes to the scenery and up the difficulty a bit compared to their original counterparts. You fight 2 bosses per stage, each being from Mega Man 2. However, you only have your weapon set from Mega Man 3, and you don't inherit the weapons from any of the Mega Man 2 bosses. Once you defeat them, then you can move on to Wily's Castle. These stages are really horrible for several reasons, and they detract heavily from the overall experience of Mega Man 3. When playing any regular stage in Mega Man, you're motivated to complete it because you know you'll be getting a new weapon at the end of it. Of course, once you hit the castle stages, you're just chugging along to the end, but seeing the next part of the game and slowly crawling towards that big skull is certainly a good enough reason to continue playing as well. The main stages give you a reason to want to complete them, but the dock stages give you no reason to complete them other than to just get them over with. It's not exciting to revisit something we have seen before, slightly change up a few things to increase the difficulty, and not reward the player at all for completing each stage. Is it not just such a wet fart after you complete one of those Doc Robot stages and you just quietly get your password and move on? I know that a lot of other NES games are like that, where you just complete the stage and move on, but Mega Man is a game that conditions us around being rewarded for completing a stage, and so this is a very jarring part of the game when you don't get anything for beating a stage. There could have been some type of a reward for beating these stages, but no, they're just a task. The Doc Robot stages just feel like work, and that is a humongous problem. Also, I feel so disconnected from the boss fights since the Mega Man 2 bosses all go into those stupid dock suits. What is the point of this? I find myself never able to remember the boss's weaknesses in these sections because I don't have any good visuals or for memory like I do in the 8 regular Robot Masters. Think about it. Can't you just picture the magnet missile flying into Hardman, or the Gemini laser bouncing off the walls into Needleman? Those visuals are what helped me memorize the boss order for any Mega Man game. However, that's completely lost when fighting the dock robots. I'll give you this. The idea of fighting old bosses is a great concept, but man, why did they have to go and put them all in a stupid suit? Additionally, since these bosses aren't from the game originally, a lot of the weaknesses don't make a ton of sense. In Mega Man 2, Woodman's weak to metal blades, Heatman is weak to bubbles, and both make a ton of sense. In Mega Man 3, Woodman is weak to the needle cannon, and Heatman is weak to the shadow blades. The weaknesses don't make as much sense because these bosses aren't designed for the game, and instead of being cool, it's just kinda weird. It feels to me that the dock stages were added because the game designers maybe felt a little pressure with how well Mega Man 2 did commercially. They needed to one-up themselves again, and this was their answer. However, the execution is just not there, and instead they created a mid-game chore. Think about it. There's no new music, the visuals are only slightly different, and you don't get anything for completing the stages. It's literally just a roadblock. I've heard this game was rushed out, and these stages make that very clear. Another precedent Mega Man 3 set was to never make this mistake again. In the rest of the series, if there are stages before Wily, they tend to be brand new levels. The worst part about it all then is that the actual Dr. Wily stages do feel incredibly short. This castle had the potential to be one of the best in the series, but because we absolutely needed to have those Dock Robot stages, it got snubbed. The end game of Mega Man 3 is just as good as the early game, and I just wish that there was more of it. I used to call this game my favorite of the classic series because I would just play the 8 stages, then call it a day once the next 4 showed up. Doing that leaves you with some great memories and makes you love the game. Mega Man 3 might legitimately be the most fun of the classic series to play up until you reach its fatal flaw. Although I played this game a ton, I only beat it once as a kid, and then wouldn't beat it again until I marathon ran a bunch of these games in college. That fact really does shine light on how much of a slog the dock stages are. I have a photo of me beating it on original hardware earlier this year, and then of course I just beat it again on Legacy Collection for this video. So in total that's 2 completions on original hardware and 2 completions on the Legacy Collection, with a little cheating involved on the collection of course. I've only beaten this game in full 4 times, but I have beaten the first several Robot Master stages probably 400 times. I would go as far to say it's the best entry in the series if you simply remove the Dock Robot stages. They literally do nothing for you, so just take them out. If you enjoy these stages, then don't mind me. I'm glad that you can find some enjoyment out of this part of the game. Again, I'm just some youngin' who was born several years after this game came out and have decided to voice my opinions about it on the internet. I'm sure you've got a comment lined up about how cool the Dock Robot stages were back in 1990, accompanied by an insult about the fact that my parents didn't decide to Anyway, I would certainly believe you if you told me that these stages were awesome back then. Remember, I used to say this was my favorite Mega Man game for a long time. It took me revisiting this game today to make the assertion that the full experience just does not do it for me anymore. So, if I just insulted a beloved childhood game for you, don't be offended, because I just insulted one of my beloved childhood games too. So how has Mega Man 3 been preserved? What's the best way to experience it today if not on original hardware? Well, first I recommend you find a hacked version of the game that removes the Dock Robot stages. I kid, but there have been numerous re-releases for Mega Man 3 over time. Honestly, you could make the argument that most of the classic series, at least those on the NES, are even better preserved than a lot of the X series, especially any of the X games past X1. Of course, the 2 big preservation efforts are similar to what we discussed with the X games. We have the Mega Man Anniversary Collection on the PS2, GameCube, and the Xbox as well this time, and then the Mega Man Legacy Collection on PS4, 3DS, PC, and numerous other systems, even the ColecoVision. I will note that in Japan, there were re-releases of the 6 Rockman titles known as the Rockman Complete Works series for the PlayStation 1. Before doing a little research for this video, I actually had no idea these existed, and I think they look pretty great. The thing that really blew me away about these games, though, was the soundtrack improvements. Going from a cartridge to a CD, of course, means more potential, but they didn't have to remaster anything if they didn't want to. However, just listen to the difference. Wait a second. That sounds familiar. The Legacy Collection used the theme from this game. Here I thought that was an original remix. Sadly, it looks like a lot of the themes don't have arranged versions here, including my favorite, Top Man. Instead, his theme is a remix of the intro theme from Mega Man 7, which is still kinda cool. At first, I didn't even want to cover the Complete Works release because they were Japan only, and I like to focus on preservation specifically done in the West, just for the sake of scope. They were eventually put on the PlayStation Store in the US, it seems, but only on the PS3 and PSP. However, I could not go without mentioning these releases. Just watching some gameplay of it really made me want to import a Japanese PS2 and all these games. The game also appeared on things like the PlayChoice 10, an arcade machine featuring NES titles. However, I don't necessarily consider something like that an act of preservation. When I highlight these, they need to be versions of the games that are accessible to modern players. Do you have a PlayChoice 10 just lying around in your house? No, you don't. For this reason, I also don't consider things like the Wii Virtual Console a modern preservation effort, because sadly we can't easily access that release anymore either. There have also been numerous appearances of Mega Man 3 on plug-and-play type consoles and even on mobile phones. However, it looks like a lot of the Mega Man games have been taken off mobile phones, except X1 is at least still available, which is yet another instance of that game being outrageously well preserved. It's shameful that you can't get the classic games on mobile anymore. That's one of the most accessible platforms to have your games on. But look, if I went over all this stuff in great detail with their own graphics for every single re-release and such, this video would probably be about 4 hours long. Overall, just understand that Mega Man 3 is ridiculously well preserved, to the highest degree. So yeah, historical risk is rock bottom for this one. In case you're wondering, yes, we will talk about games that have actual historical risk at some point. But look, I like Mega Man, you like Mega Man, we all like Mega Man. This video just happened to land right after my X1 and X2 reviews, which were the first times I really dove into the concept of historical risk, and I needed to get this one done in time for the holidays. So, don't worry, we will get to some high-risk games down the line. The only things I could really think that need to be done regarding Mega Man 3's preservation would be bringing back the mobile phone versions and possibly updating the Legacy Collection to have a little more additional artwork or other documentation of the game. As always, us continuing to talk about these games on the internet will forever preserve their legacy as well. Speaking of artwork, the in-game art is as great as always with Mega Man 3. Arguably, this one really got it down compared to 1 and 2. See, Mega Man 1 had some strange color choices, and Mega Man 2 did things mostly right, except for that intro and Bubble Man stage. Oh god! Mega Man 3 really upped the color palette game, and they continued to make every classic game that came after it just as vibrant. The box art started to improve a little bit on this guy as well. He still looks a bit weird though, for sure. I have this one cartridge only, but thankfully its price has stayed relatively affordable over the years. And I mean that when looking at Mega Man as a whole, not at your finances or mine, but compared to the rest of the series. One day, I would love to have it complete in box, sure, just like how I want every game complete in box, but for now we're going to look at some digital box and manual scans from other folks. We have several boxes from Mega Man 3. This is we have the North American box here, 2 European ones, we have a German and a Spanish, the Japanese box art for Rockman 3, which of course looks way better than anything that he ever did in America. And then we have the back. There we have the back, the English back. So Mega Man 3 explodes in back-to-back robot battle, so kind of alluding at those dock stages, but you know. 21 rapid-fire levels, fight all new, totally terrifying foes. Call Rush your dog droid for super machines that speed you past danger. Demolish master robots and gain their powers for the final cataclysmic clash. That's pretty cool sounding, huh? And this time it looks like a lot of the screenshots are actually just from the early stages of the game. There's not like a huge spoiler. So yeah, they were starting to get it together when it came to the box art for this one a little more for sure. Now let's move on over to the manual. This one's going to be pretty short. This is kind of a typical NES manual. It's really just pretty brief, but hey, you gotta like the full color artwork here. Look at this, like that is so awesome. Obviously such a big step up from the first game, and I believe even the second one was not in full color, so you see we have a little bit of story briefing here, and then controls, getting started, stuff, this, that, and the other. Nice drawings of the E-Tanks and all that here. Some cool artwork of Mega Man. Power-ups, whatever, a little explanation of Rush. And you see Mega Man and Rush, that looks so nice. Gotta love that. Password explanation. And then Robot Master roll call. So, Magnet Man, Snake Man, Needle Man, Hard Man, Top Man, Gemini Man, Spark Man, and Shadow Man, all on some yellow squares here. So, nut and bolts for winning. So, a couple of tips here. Like that artwork a lot. You know, that's looks like old Robot Masters there, not Mega Man 3 guys, but it's still really cool. And then that's it. So then we have our, you know, warranty info, this, that, and the other, and some advertisements for more Capcom games, of course. So that's that. Really quick discussion about the box and manual, but that's how NES games are. Overall, I still really like the vast majority of Mega Man 3, but when looking at the entire picture, it loses out big time for me compared to a few other Mega Man games on the NES. Completing the game in its entirety is a slog because of its fatal flaw. However, it's a game that will always hold a special place in my memory, and I'll still revisit it from time to time. As we approach this holiday, instead of asking for an $800 PS5 Pro that doesn't come with a disc drive, consider delving into some retro classics like Mega Man 3.